Good morning, everyone. It's Bhat from Digital Leopard, and today we've got with us Bronwen Stephens-Harding from Rogue Opera. As a professional opera singer, Bronwen understands the ins and outs of working with your voice. As this is also incredibly important for video, I asked her to share some tricks and tips with you. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting you to sing in your videos, and certainly not to perform opera. But the same principles apply to projecting your voice when you are singing or doing a presentation. Some people have this natural ability to project their voice in a way that makes them sound really interesting and important. They almost compel you to listen. I'm sure you know at least one person like this. Bronwen, is this something that one can learn?
It absolutely is, Kat. And I'd also like to add, though, that everyone has their own fabulous natural voice. And I think the secret to being a good speaker is not forgetting both of those things, that there are definitely things you can learn, but you also need to be you.
How do you know what's your natural sort of voice level?
So we all have different voices that we use. If you have pets, if you have children, you use a very different tone of voice to talk to your pets or children.
I
When you're
suppose
excited,
you wouldn't speak to your boss in the same way that you speak to your your puppy.
that's right. And even when you are talking to your pets or your children, you'll have different tones of voices, whether you're happy with them, whether you're telling them off, and just in normal conversation, if you're excited, then you have a certain tone of voice. If you're worried about something, your voice changes. So we naturally are actors. We're born into this human world where we all communicate through sound and through also gesture. And so we all have that ability, but it's understanding perhaps some of the key things that you might want to try and enhance when you're doing a formal speech or presenting to camera and practicing. So like all good things in life, having a good speaking voice comes with practice.
That is reassuring though, because if I had to be stuck with mine, I would be very unhappy. So please tell us, like, how do you figure out what's your baseline and how to improve it?
So I think a good way to work out what your sort of base presenting voice would be to read something. So pretend you're an
Okay.
actor. To pick a piece of wording from anything, ideally something that actually you haven't learnt, you don't know. So you could take a book that you haven't read yet and pick it up and just open it at a random page and then play at being an actor. So read it out in the kind of voice that you think an actor might use. And by doing that, you're already doing a very important thing, which is a performance. Because
Wow.
the difference between just chatting to your friends and presenting on camera or presenting in a room full of people is that actually that kind of talk is a performance. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that it's performance. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm acting, that's bad, that's pretending. But
Yeah,
actually,
you would want to be natural with your friends. You would want to be you rather than, act or pretend or
that's
try
right.
anything.
Yeah. So if you picked up, so for example, I'm going to pick up the thing I have in front of me, which is a Sony manual. So we'll see how this goes.
Oh,
It's probably going to be very dry, but just as an example, you could just read a small piece of the sentence and it could go something like this. The duration of time available for movie recording is as follows. So just in a short sentence like that, you'll hear, I've just had some natural lift to the tone of my voice.
hmm.
And I did that instinctively because I was reading something that I was presenting. And you can practice doing that. And if you find that you don't have that natural variation in tone and emphasis on certain words, then that's something you can practice. So you could take that same sentence and you could underline the words that you think are important.
Yeah.
And then you could think consciously, okay, on those words, I'm going to vary my tone a little bit. And again, that's something that's very personal to each person. If you normally speak in quite a high voice, then you might want to, on an important word, lower it slightly, or vice versa. If normally you speak a little bit more softly, when you get to the word you think you want to emphasize, you could just give it a little bit more volume. But
Okay.
it's very hard to give very exact rules because, as I said, everyone has their own unique voice, and it's important to not try and change your voice completely.
So I guess you're saying that, we are already acting certain way in certain situations. How do we know which voice is our natural one? Like, because you said even if you pick something up, you will still present it in a certain way.
Hmm.
How do you know that will be the natural? Like, am I speaking in my natural voice or am I trying to act on stage?
So this is a fun exercise that we can jump into. So I
Okay.
really think that in any situation in life, unless you're asleep or unless you're with the person you're most comfortable with in the world, there is a little bit of acting involved. And again, sometimes people think that sounds like a bad thing, but let's put it in this perspective. Let's imagine we're in the world of Downton Abbey.
Okay.
So that's lords and ladies, and you have upper class and you have a lower class. And we're going to give these people a status from 1 being very low status and 10 being very high status, i.e. the head of the manor, the lord or lady of the manor. So if we just pretend that we're number 1, we're the servant, we're the lowest of the
Mhm.
low, we're the little stable boy, and we're just going to try a physical exercise to imagine how that might feel. So if you were low status, physically, you might hunch your shoulders a little bit.
Okay.
So do this along with me. Hunch your
Okay.
shoulders a bit. Maybe if you're sitting, you kind of crawl in on yourself, cross your legs. You don't want to be noticed. You don't want to really be taking up a lot of room.
Mhm.
And maybe if you were speaking to people, you would be speaking in a kind of a quiet, unobtrusive way, and you wouldn't want to say too much.
Okay.
Now imagine you're at status 10. So first of all, with the physicality, you want to sit up straight, or if you're standing, stand up straight. Let your shoulders become nice and wide,
Okay.
and let your hands be nice and strong but relaxed at your side. You might even want to feel like there's something heavy in your hands, so you're just sort of not clenching your fists, and then let that drop down to your waist. And again, if you're
Wow.
standing, widen your stance a bit. If you're sitting, just really feel that weight going into your seat. And the result of this should be, and could be, that you feel your neck getting longer, you feel your back widening, and you're just feeling very strong and powerful.
Wow. Okay.
So the
This is the
reason,
Superman pose, right? Like the.
yes, so of course, many people have probably seen the videos on YouTube where you can have that power pose. It's the same thing. It's that feeling of strength and space and tallness and status. And the
Yeah.
reason I'm talking about this physically is because it's a very easy way to see how your body changes with an idea of different status. It also would affect your voice. And
That's really interesting.
the reason I wanted to bring it back to your question about what's natural is I think really in life, day to day, moment to moment, we can play around with those changes in status. And we'd never go from 1 to 10, but you might be in the comfort of your own home, chatting with your partner or with your friends, in around a status 3 or 4. Everyone's happy,
Mhm.
everyone's comfortable, there's nothing to prove. When you go into a meeting, you should elevate your status.
Wow.
You should think, okay, me chatting to my friends is status 3. I'm a bit casual, I'm a bit relaxed. I'm now in a meeting or I'm on camera or I'm on screen. Maybe I should just elevate that status a little bit. And you can do that in the exercise we just did, going from 1 to 10. You can just do a smaller version of that. So you sit up straight, you
Yeah.
take a deep breath, you feel your shoulders nice and wide, and you
Okay. Do I
feel,
speak differently now?
and you do. So the key really is, I think, to good speaking, it does involve your whole body.
Wow.
It also
Well,
involves your intention.
I'm sure confidence is like takes plays a major role in that, but yeah, I thought it was just, all based here around our throat. I didn't realize that it was the whole posture.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think, I did say there's no specific exercises, but the 3 top tips are breathing, posture, and
Yeah.
intention, which
Okay.
is kind of the same as confidence. But if you have the intention about what you want to say and the impression you want to give really clear, then that will
Yeah.
come across. That's where your natural personality is still really important. But you can use these tricks in terms of changing your posture, changing your intention, thinking, okay, I just need to up my status 1 or 2 notches because this is an important thing for me. That will give you
Wow.
extra confidence, and that will automatically already improve your speaking voice.
Because there are those people out there that just the way they speak, they kind of compel you to listen. And I don't know what it is. I've been trying to figure it out. And sometimes it's not even that they say something so important, it's just anything they say sounds really important.
So I think there are some people who just have voices that are wonderful to listen to.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
that as well is unique to you, because I might enjoy listening to a certain type of voice and you might enjoy listening to another type of voice. And of course, there are
Yeah.
commonalities in what we enjoy, but I do think it's what comes again as confidence or charisma. And so those people's voices that you enjoy listening to are probably more about their confidence, their posture, their clarity, and everything about them just makes them interesting. And in
Oh,
fact, what
wow.
they're saying perhaps is not interesting, but they've developed a way of speaking and a habit of speaking that is interesting.
I see. Well, I did not expect that one of the main things you say today would be sit up straight. But you see, I'm kind of making an effort.
Yes, fantastic. And it's actually a very easy thing you can do. Again, if you're in the middle of a presentation or you're in a room full of people or you're speaking to your camera, just take a moment to breathe, check your posture, slow down what you're saying, and go on. And actually, silence is just as impactful as lots and lots of words.
I've heard so doing taking pauses in the right places really changes your presentation as well.
And I think the pauses and the silences, again, always come back to breathing. So let's just do a quick breathing exercise together.
Okay.
And this is something that you can practice not on camera, but I'm going to make you do it on camera now. So first of all,
Okay.
just camera view is not quite wide enough, but you're going to take your hands and you're going to put them at the base of your ribs. So if I just shuffle back a bit, so you just want to be comfortably feeling where your ribs start to dip into your waist. And then when you breathe, I want you to feel that your ribs and your hands actually move out. Because one thing that can sometimes cause problems for people in their speaking voice is if you breathe all the time, very shallow breaths, and you're always breathing up here. If you're nervous, that can happen. So if you're nervous, then you might be breathing up here. Whereas in fact, what you want to be doing is taking long breaths that actually really breathe into your bottom and the back of your ribs. So another way to just sort of check in with this, you can take a straw, or you could just make a straw shape with your lips and breathe in audibly. So as you breathe in, you want to feel your hands moving outwards.
I had to make an effort. So initially I couldn't feel my hands moving. And then I had to kind of move around and it worked.
Yeah, and maybe find the right spot.
Yeah. No, I think I was just breathing quite shallowly first, and I needed to kind of adjust a bit.
So often the thinking of breathing through a straw or actually breathing through a straw will also just help you visualize that your breath's going all the way down into your ribs, and your lungs are really expanding from the bottom of your ribs, which is where the bottom of your lungs are. So that's a really good thing to do. And when you do that, when you feel your hands moving, what you might always also feel, if you want to put your hands just sort of on your back, not too high, just nice and comfortable, and do the same exercise, you can possibly feel a bit more movement there and have the idea that you're breathing into the back of your hands. So again,
might not work in the boardroom though, just saying.
I know this is an exercise to do outside of your presentation. So this is just checking in with, where do I normally breathe? Have I ever really thought about the fact that my lungs take up almost all of my back?
Wow. Okay.
When we think about breathing and when we think about speaking, often we do get focused too much on, it's all coming from here, or perhaps, from your mouth. Whereas in fact, as I said, it's your whole body, but particularly this torso area of your body is involved. So if you just connect with that deeper breathing, of course, you don't want to stop in the middle of your speech and go, hang on a minute, everyone.
That might not go down well.
It might not go down well. But if you practice that calmly and away from any kind of stress situation, then what you could do, if you could just feel yourself, I haven't taken a breath for a while, I'm getting faster and faster, I'm speaking higher and higher, and I can feel tension coming in, you can just pause. And in that pause, instead of holding your breath, which is often what we do when we're nervous, is actually just allow all that breath to come in. And if you've practiced that idea of feeling the breath come into the back of the ribs and the lower ribs, you will, when you take a deep breath, relax everything. And you'll be able to do that without people noticing that you're suddenly going.
Excellent. Well, you said earlier that you start speaking higher and higher. Is it better to speak lower?
So this is a very interesting question.
A bit cheeky because we've had this conversation before.
We have, yes. So there's been a very interesting development over the last sort of 20, 30 years, possibly a little bit before that, but they've started doing studies on it now, that women in particular have this idea that we should lower our voices to sound more authoritative, to be listened to more. And that has some basis in well, no, I'm not going to say that. I don't believe we should have to lower our voices to be listened to. So that's the first thing to say. But it has certainly been a habit and an expectation. And again, I think variety in your tone of voice is important. And if you feel like you're always talking in a very high pitch, the questions to ask are, is that just my natural voice? If it is, great. Maybe just find a little bit of variety in it. Or am I talking in a kind of high, tight way because I'm nervous? In that case, exercises of breathing and being prepared helps. And the dangers of over lowering your voice, we get into something called vocal fry. And that's an American term, but it's a sort of a gravelly sound. So one of the problems with artificially thinking, oh, I must speak really low, is that you start to speak in a voice that sounds a bit like you're graveling. So you can feel a sort of crackle. And it's not.
I think I do that a lot, not on purpose, but it just kind of happens that I can feel the like a vibration in my throat. Is that what you mean?
That's right, yeah. So if you put your fingers on your throat there as you're talking normally, you will always feel a vibration. This is where your vocal cords come together, and that's what makes sound. When you lower your voice below the sort of natural speaking register, which is different for each person, and you go into this crackly sound, it's where you're lowering your voice too much, and you're forcing, and I'm trying to do it, but I've trained myself so well not to do it. It's hard to demonstrate. But if you get into this, like you sound like a monster or a Dalek, and often people do talk like this, and it's because you're restricting how your voice resonates. So you can hear that now, and actually some women do talk like this a lot, and it's a habit. It's something we don't develop consciously. It's not really harmful for your voice, it's tiring for your voice. And the main thing is that it takes away any variation in tone, because if you are constricting the sound you make to that kind of crackly sound, then you're just not going to sound as interesting. Your voice certainly won't carry as much because it's lost all the resonance. So when we speak and when we sing as an opera singer, you're always looking for this magic word, resonance. And you make resonance in all different parts of your bodies. You make resonance in the cavities inside your face, and also, a lot of other physiology that goes into it. And if you're taking away all of those by speaking down here and just using this little part of your larynx, your vocal cords, then it loses all the emotion that you might normally have in your voice, and it certainly won't project as much. So lowering your voice as a concept, I think, is a dangerous thing.
Fair enough. Let's not do that. Let's stay as we are, women. Let's not change in this world.
And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have variety, and you sometimes speak low and sometimes you can speak high, and you can be excited or you can be serious, but you shouldn't go, oh, I must always speak like this. And because what that does is changes your whole mental attitude. It probably will bring tension into your body and into your voice because it's not your natural expression, and overall it will be less impactful.
So the different sort of levels are also associated with different emotions. Is that the case?
Yes, I think it's emotion is a very complicated thing, and this is where it comes back to being an actor, I guess. So if you have an important thing to say, then perhaps delivering it in a very high-pitched voice and very fast would not associate it with seriousness. But to me, if you want to deliver something serious or important, I think it's more about the pace and how much time you take to deliver that, and the words you choose to use. and which words you want to pause on or take longer to say, and which words you might want to really emphasize by actually speaking very quickly, and then make sure people have understood with perhaps a raised tone. And there's lots of different tricks. And again, some of that you can learn and practice.
Yeah.
And it's good to know. And there are lots of, great acting games you can play to do that.
Oh, could you share one? That sounds really good.
So you often you can do this with a partner. So we have a partner here. I've done this mainly face to face with people in a room, and so you would look at that person and you would just describe to them what you had for breakfast. So can you tell me what you had for breakfast, Kat?
Well, I had 2 pieces of bread with pate on it. It was actually fish pate, which, in the morning I realized that was not the best choice. I don't think I'm buying it again. And I had coffee with cashew milk and no sugar.
Okay, so now can you tell me that again, but tell it to me like it's a really big secret that no one else except you and me should know.
So today, for breakfast, I had 2 pieces of bread with fish pate and coffee with no sugar.
Great. So already what I heard is that you had much more variety in
True.
your own. And because it was a secret, you obviously chose the secret to be exciting, and that's what came across.
I was trying to make it, hush hush.
Yeah. So what was interesting is that you really the volume of your voice didn't change too much. But
Really? I thought I was
tone.
softer. Huh.
Possibly softer overall, but there was more variety.
No, that's interesting because you don't realize how you sound. And I think it catches out a lot of people on video because they're not used to the sound of their own voice. Like we hear it different in our head. And then suddenly it's played back to you and it's like, no, I do not sound like that.
Yes, so the reason we sound different to ourselves when we're played back is that when you speak, you hear your own voice obviously through your ears, but you actually also hear it through the resonating bones in your face. So what you hear is kind of a double input of sound because you have the extra volume or the extra resonance that comes in through your own bones of the face. And normally that makes your voice sound possibly a bit deeper, a bit more echoey. You actually have your own reverb chamber in your head. And when you hear that played back to you from any kind of sound recording, you don't have all of that. So you will sound different. But another tip is that if you are speaking on camera a lot, as I said, with practice, all good things come with practice, just record what you're saying and do listen back to it. And very soon you'll get used to what you sound like as you listen back, and then you'll be able to focus on, okay, what I really wanted to do was emphasize this word, or maybe I wanted to make this sound like more like I had a really exciting secret to tell you, or maybe this one was more of a warning. So you can then start to play with your own emotional expression by practicing and playing back. And after the first few 10 times, you'll forget about, oh my gosh, I sound so different, and you'll really focus on the...
It takes a while. I had a massive sort of barrier about speaking on the camera, and I would not have been able to do the exercises with you. I would just completely freeze if we spoke maybe half a year ago. But through all the interviews and practice and all that, I'm kind of getting, I don't know if I'm getting better, but I'm getting more used to it, and it's less scary and less daunting. And I think it is, I can focus on actually sounding better now, which is good.
Yes, yeah. And I think it is, as with anything, it takes practice. And the more you practice and the more you can do that self-analysis of listening, then actually you'll just be much more confident. And then you won't have to think about it all the time of, oh, am I thinking, am I sounding right? And that's another thing that we should throw out with sounding more authoritative and lowering our voices is, do I sound right? Because as I said, everyone has their own unique voice. And that's what's interesting to people, is your passion and your unique voice. And as long as you feel that you can breathe and have good posture and understand what is perhaps less healthy for your voice, then really you're doing it right.
Brilliant. Does stress affect how we sound?
Yes, stress absolutely affects the voice, and it can do that in a number of ways. So If you're stressed, usually you're probably tired, for one thing. So some basic physiological things, you'll probably not be sleeping well, you might not be eating well, and you might not be drinking enough water. So those are three things that are a symptom of being stressed. There are also three things that you should always be conscious of when you have a lot of speaking to do. But emotion, and we've been talking a lot about emotion, emotion and stress absolutely comes into your voice. So if you're in a very stressful situation, it's very likely that your muscles will be tense. Your posture again will probably be in a fight position. You're ready to be on the defensive. It's very instinctual for us to be all the muscles tensed up, and you come up higher on your toes and you sort of lean forward and shoulders are raised. So if you're in a situation that you know is stressful, or you're having a very stressful time, again, those simple exercises of breathing and just trying to find that power position, that status 10, will help you with the stress.
Okay.
And
Sorry, go on.
And so those are some immediate things you can do. If you have been under stress for a long time and you'll find your voice is getting very tired, or you're losing your voice, then you should absolutely go and see a vocal professional, because you may have developed some harmful habits in the way you speak, and a speech therapist might need to give you some exercises to help you sort of unwind that stress physically from your throat. I can give you one though, which is two, which are very good.
Yes, please.
You're ready to do some more exercises with me.
Yeah, of course. I guess I don't get embarrassed anymore.
That's fantastic. So one thing to check if your voice is in good vocal health, and I think it's a great thing to relieve stress, both these exercises, because they both sound completely ridiculous. So one good way to relieve stress is to be able to laugh at yourself, I believe. But this is also a good way just to check in with your voice and to see if your voice is in good vocal health, which it might not be if you're under stress. So the first is called a siren. So it's making a noise, starting low in pitch, going up as high as you can, and then coming back down. So I'll demonstrate, and then you can try and replicate.
Okay.
So we just do this. You can have your mouth kind of a little bit, just loose jaw, and it will be like this. So you don't have to go that wide, but just
I don't
play around with it.
Got that much variety in my voice. Is that it? Or did I sound more like a cow than siren?
Yeah. And can you go maybe start a little bit higher and go a bit higher?
Oh.
So.
I can't go any higher than that.
That's fine. So the fun thing to do with it is just to play around with it. So you can go, and I don't know if Zoom's cutting all of that, but one thing you can also do when you're doing that, if you now take your hands and put them just on your belly, so sort of just below your belly button, again, remembering that the voice is not just happening here, it's connected to all of our muscles. When you make a sudden change in pitch, like the you really want it to come from your lower abdomen. So you should feel a bit of a pulse. So when you laugh, you have a belly laugh, that that kind of muscle engagement is something that can help us make variety in sound. And as a singer, that's the thing that you do certainly employ to change pitch and do that. So when you're doing your siren, you really want to be feeling like you've breathed into the back of your ribs like we did before, and that your sound is kind of coming from your belly. So good. How did that feel?
Once again.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, Zoom's cutting out for me. I don't know about you.
Oh, I can hear you okay.
Yeah. It's just a thing with Zoom. But what I think I heard was that you had a very nice smooth sound going up and down. And hopefully it didn't feel like you were having any tension in your throat. It was all just about playing with the sound coming from deep
Except for like people watching, that was okay.
Don't worry, there'll only be like hundreds of people watching on YouTube. It'll be fine.
Hey, maybe.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So the next silly exercise, if you're ready.
Okay, let's go.
This is, I spoke earlier about the vocal fry, which is where we were getting this gravelly sound. This is almost the opposite of that. It's again, if you've been stressed and your voice is tired and maybe you feel like a bit husky or you just feel like you're fatigued, you can do this exercise, which just very gently encourages the vocal folds. So when we make sound, it's our vocal folds inside our neck are closing gently together. And if we have been shouting or under stress and using a lot of vocal fry, then sometimes those vocal cords can be a little bit tender and therefore they're not meeting as well as they might. So we want to stroke them. We want to encourage them to come together nicely. And we do this by whining like a dog, like a puppy.
Okay.
But just to make it a bit more fun, we're going to do it around the vowels. So A, I, E, O, U, and we're going to put a N sound in front. So it's going to sound a little bit like this. So we're trying to say A, E, I, U, but you're saying and you're doing a little whimper or a whine over it.
No.
Yeah, and just to make it a bit smoother. So
I think my dog came in running to see what's going on.
He's going to help you.
You want to help?
You want to help?
No. Like this?
So we're going to keep them all together. So
okay.
Can he hear you really? Oh, hello, Rocky.
Hello, Rocky. No. That one is tricky.
It is tricky. So it's A, E, I, U. So just say that one first.
A, E, U.
I as in I.
It's just because in English, when you spell things, they sound different than when you actually say them. So then I've been trying all my life to learn to spell them correctly in English. Because for us in Polish, A is A, you know, like that's how you spell it. It's A. Whereas for you, A is A. And then you have to remember that E is not A, but it's actually E. So now it's really confusing me.
Okay, yeah. I know English is the worst language to learn because the rules are just, out the window.
Because at the moment you are doing them as you actually say them, right? So A is A. And
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's now confusing me a lot.
Okay, so it's like A, like you're yawning. A as in the letter A. E as in C. Like to see. I, like I, now this is getting too confusing. I should have thought this through.
So it's A, E, O, U, E.
Yeah, that would do.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter what order.
But I made it super complicated.
That's okay. Yeah. The important thing in the exercise is actually the nya, the in front of it. So, yeah.
Nya.
Because we want to get this kind of whiny sound in front of the letters, which you might not enjoy.
Really enjoying it, actually. Yeah. New. Ni.
Can train him to do some as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are disturbing you today. Mommy is okay. Ollie is okay.
Yeah. So that's just something that, as I said, helps bring the vocal cords together. Another thing you can do to relax your voice, and this is, again, perhaps something that English speakers will identify more because it's a very common sort of phrase. Have you heard of the expression, how now brown cow?
How now brown cow?
Yes. So it's all ow sounds.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pretend again we're a very posh, say, 80-year-old lady dowager, and we're going to say it with a very round, hollow sounds, a how now, brown cow. Oh, Rocky likes that one as well. And what we're achieving with that is it's almost like you're yawning. So if you yawn,
How?
that's
No.
it.
Brown cow.
Mm.
He's really loving it.
He really is. And the purpose of both of those exercises are to try and find some resonant space. So if you're imagining that yawny or that sound,
Mm.
you're creating space inside your mouth.
Mm.
You're taking away hopefully any tension that's been there. You know, if you're speaking really, really like this, then everything's tight here. Whereas if you're kind of yawning and saying, how now, brown cow, you should feel lots of space
Oh
here.
no,
Maybe your ears
brown cow.
pop. And there's Rocky. Hello, Rocky.
Okay, everyone is okay. Go to your bed. Goodbye.
So anyway, if you had been stressed by now, hopefully you just had so much fun making silly noises. You have not only physically relaxed your voice, you've kind of mentally broken any habit that you might have of when you're stressed and anxious that
Mm.
you're used to. We all have these habits that when we're under pressure or we're stressed and anxious, we have bad habits that we get into, and that can be the way we speak, it could be how we hold our body, it can also be how we think about things of like, oh, I have to get this right, I have to be this, and if you can take away those physical and mental and vocal signs of stress, then you're
Yeah,
freeing up your voice to be able to speak how you want to and get your message across.
that sounds really lovely. You mentioned earlier that you should have enough water as well, and that diet might affect things.
Mm-hmm.
How does it affect your voice?
So I think, again, that's something perhaps personal from person to person. Some people have
Mm.
actual allergies to things, but absolutely water is very key. I always have a glass of water or a bottle of water next to me. If you feel thirsty, then you're already a little bit dehydrated, and that can be bad for your voice. I think really, unless you have an allergy, diet not so much, but
Okay.
you know, that's other singers would disagree with me. Some singers have very, very strict things that they do and don't eat. Some people say dairy's bad, some people say spicy food's bad. I
Mm.
think it's really what your you know, your own physiology can deal with, but definitely drinking lots of water is an absolute must.
I see, I
And
understand.
alcohol, not good.
Oh, and we all think
Singing
we
or
sing so
speaking.
well after
Yeah.
drinking.
Yeah.
It
We all
improves.
think we sound better after a few drinks, but possibly not.
That is possible, actually. Okay, so I've got one last question. Um, Especially when I'm recording the videos, I'm talking by myself to the camera. How can I modulate my voice to sound more interesting? Because a lot of the time it sounds really flat, particularly if I've got a script and I'm trying to get through the script. And I will try to kind of emphasize some words. What
Mhm.
would be, what are the tricks of the trade, basically?
Mm. So I think it is, as you said, emphasizing some words.
Mm,
And it's practice. I'm afraid it's just practice, and then watching back. If you have the luxury to watch it back, if you have a script that you're preparing,
yeah.
then do maybe 2 practice rounds, and practice which words you're going to emphasize, and just listen. If you have your script there, then maybe go back and try and mark out, okay, here's where I was too flat. Sometimes it can help to actually do that with a line on a piece of paper. So you could just start to notice for yourself, okay, here I'm here I'm speaking on exactly the same tone. Oh, here I went up a bit. Is that what I meant to
That's
do?
interesting. Actually, that will make you more conscious of how
Yeah.
it sounds. That's quite good.
And again, maybe that's something you don't need to do all the time, but just
Yeah.
initially, if you feel that's something that you've noticed in your own podcasts, that because
Yeah.
you do have a script and a script is important, then maybe a way to help that is to analyze it like that, so you're not analyzing yourself. That's an important thing.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there going, oh, I sound this. You're going, oh, that's interesting, my voice is here and now my voice is here. So analyze it in a very calm and almost what's the word? Well, it's a non-personal way, because it's not judging what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
just noticing where your voice is, and then thinking, actually, in this sentence or this word, it would be really interesting if I could slow down a bit more, or I could raise my tone a bit more, or I could change the way that I speak, in, because variety, I think, is really important. And again, if you're working from a script, and taking time and having pauses is perhaps something you need to practice a bit more. Just mark
Yeah.
it in on the script, do a double line, or if you're printing your script out, put a big gap. There are little tricks like that that you can do.
That's a really
So
good idea, actually.
at the beginning, it is very much methodical, and it will
Yeah.
take some practice, but as you do it more, then you'll start to do those things instinctively. And it doesn't mean that you're not working as hard. It just means you've learned, you've taught yourself very
Yeah.
well. And as I said before, it's still about preparation. It's still a performance, but perhaps it's not as hard work as the first few times that you need to do that.
I've been doing a little bit of my research on the topic as well, and there is one thing I want to run past you. So some of the vloggers are saying that they would pick somebody who, like, they like how this person sounds, and then they would try to kind of repeat what they say to kind of get into the habit. Do you think that's a good idea, or is it more sort of fighting with your natural level?
I guess it depends on how you learn. If that's a
Okay.
good way for you personally to learn, then perhaps that's good. But I definitely recommend, if you wanted to do that, to have a variety of people that you were
That's a good
copying,
idea.
because then you're not trying to mimic someone exactly. You're
Yeah.
just noticing, oh yeah, the thing that person did,
Hmm.
I really like that, and I'll watch it and I'll practice and I can learn from it. But
Yeah.
to avoid, just because what you want to learn is what is it for you that makes that interesting,
Mm.
and then thinking again about the things we've talked about. Is it really the exact pitch or tone of their voice that I find interesting, or is it because actually, they had a pause and they, so there's lots of different factors. So I think there's a danger in just watching a
Yeah.
video and thinking, oh, I'm going to talk exactly like this person, because the way they got to talk like that could have come from all these other different preparations.
True. Are there any speakers that you know that you think that sound particularly well? Like anybody you would recommend watching?
Oh gosh, I mean, people who are good statespeople,
Okay.
Barack Obama, I think, people who have given lots of speeches, have been
Ah,
through that preparation. I think
yeah.
they probably are worth watching, because they've done a huge amount of work. They've probably had a lot of coaching. They've also got passion about what they're
True.
talking
True.
about. TED Talks are always really interesting, I
I
think.
was thinking of TED Talks. They are
Yeah.
nice and people always speak so well that I'm sure they've got a lot of training, but it just sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I mean, there are lots and lots of people that I enjoy listening to. I think, but it is also, it's never just the person's voice. It's always
True.
the topic, and have they, I think as a performer, I respect and I enjoy listening to people who I can see have a craft. I can
Yeah.
see they've practiced, they're passionate, they know what their intention is. That to me is really inspiring to see.
Oh, thank you so much, Bronwen. That's been so useful. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I think, just coming back to my first point, that, really celebrate your individual voice, and whether you're speaking or singing or talking to your dog, or talking to a room full of people, just enjoy this gift that we all have to communicate. And, that's the real joy, is understanding your tools that you have to be able to communicate your message. And that's going to be very unique to you, and your voice is absolutely part of that. So do take the time to breathe, and to do your posture exercises, and to do the analysis to help you to find the best way for you to communicate, but never to
Yeah.
forget that it's your voice that is really fascinating. And as long as you believe in your voice, then other people will find it interesting to listen to as well.
I like the one about posture because it's so simple and so easy to follow, and
Yeah.
I just need to do it a little bit more.
And the more you practice that, then that will
Yeah.
become natural as well. And it's such an easy thing. If you just think, oh gosh, am I going into a low voice, or am I tired, or am I rushing? I'm just gonna breathe, relax, and then speak.
Oh, thank you so much. That's been really helpful. Thank you, Bronwen.
Great. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I know I did. Bronwyn had some amazing advice, and I'm sure I'm going to put it in practice as well. So watch the space. Hopefully my speaking style will improve after I do some ridiculous exercises that, make me a bit embarrassed just before I film. I might get a bit better. I think it makes you relaxed. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like button below. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I will ask Bronwyn to respond to you as well. And whatever you do, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.